The story of Shantanu and Ganga. The story of Mahabharata starts with King Dushyant, a powerful ruler of ancient India. Dushyant married Shakuntala, the foster daughter of sage Kanva. Shakuntala was born to Menaka, a nymph of Indra's court from sage Vishwamitra, who secretly fell in love with her. Shakuntala gave birth to a worthy son Bharat, who grew up to be fearless and strong. He ruled for many years and was the founder of Kuru dynasty. Unfortunately, things did not go well after the death of Bharat, and his large empire was reduced to a kingdom of medium size with its capital Hastinapur. Mahabharata means the story of the descendants of Bharat. The regular saga of the epic of Mahabharata, however, starts with King Shantanu. Shantanu lived in Hastinapur and was known for his valor and wisdom. One day, he went out hunting to a nearby forest. Reaching the bank of the river Ganges, that is Ganga, he was startled to see an indescribably charming damsel appearing out of the water and then walking on its surface. Her grace and divine beauty struck Shantanu at the very first sight, and he was completely spellbound. When the king inquired who she was, the maiden curtly asked, "Why are you asking me that?" King Shantanu admitted, "Having been captivated by your loveliness, I, Shantanu, king of Hastinapur, have decided to marry you. I can accept your proposal provided that you are ready to abide by my two conditions," argued the maiden. "What are they?" anxiously asked the king. "Firstly, you will never ask anything about my personal life, like who I am or where do I come from. Secondly, you will never stop me from doing anything or ask the reason of anything I do." Shantanu was totally gripped by the maiden's beauty, now known as Ganga, and immediately accepted her conditions. They instantly entered into a love marriage, that is Gandharva Vivaha, and returned home. Things went on smoothly for some time, and then Queen Ganga gave birth to a lovely boy. As soon as King Shantanu heard of this good news, he was overjoyed and rushed to the palace to congratulate the queen. But he was astonished to see that the queen took the newborn in her arms, went to the river and drowned him. The king was shocked and felt miserable, yet he could not ask the queen about her action. He was bound by his pledge not to question or interfere with her actions. Hardly had Shantanu recovered from the shock of the death of his first son at the hands of the queen when she became expectant again. The king felt happy and thought that the queen would not repeat her dreadful action again. But the queen again took the newborn into her arms and drowned him in the river. After seeing the ghastly action of the queen, the king was in immense grief again, but his pledge bade him to say anything. This continued on until Queen Ganga bore the eighth son and marched to the river as before. Shantanu lost his patience, and as soon as the queen was about to drown the newborn, Shantanu stopped her. "I have lost 7 sons like this, and am left with no hair. I can no longer stand to see my flesh and blood decimated before my eyes." Queen Ganga turned around and said, "O king, you have violated your pledge. I will not stay with you any longer. However, before leaving you, I will open the secret that led to the death of your 7 sons. I am goddess Ganga and am in this human form as a result of sage Vashishta's curse on the 8 Vasus. In Hinduism, the Vasus are attendant deities of Indra and later Vishnu. They are 8 elemental gods representing aspects of nature. The name Vasu means dweller or dwelling. They are 8 among the 33 gods. It would be appropriate here to know the names of the 8 Vasus and their respective meanings. The first Vasu is known as Anala, which means living or the fire. The second Vasu is known as Dhara, which means support or the earth. The third Vasu is known as Anila, which means the wind. The fourth Vasu is known as Aha, means space. The fifth Vasu is known as Pratyusha, means light or the sun. The sixth Vasu is known as Prabhasa, which means the sky. The seventh Vasu is known as Soma, which means the moon. And the eighth Vasu is known as Dhruva, which means the stars. Ganga continued, these 8 Vasus were one day travelling on a holiday with their wives when they came across sage Vashishta's ashram. Outside the ashram, they saw Nandini, Vashishta's divine cow. One of the wives was taken in so much by the beauty of the cow that she requested her husband Prabhasa to bring the cow to her. Prabhasa replied, Dear, we are all devas. What use do we have for cows or cow's milk? Even though it is Nandini whose milk gives everlasting life, we are already enjoying immortality on account of being devas. Most importantly, sage Vashishta is very fond of Nandini and it would be improper on our part to violate his integrity. Despite many attempts by Prabhasa, his wife did not yield. She made imploring requests and melted Prabhasa's heart. He agreed, and thus the 8 Vasus took Nandini and a calf by force and disappeared before Vashishta returned to the ashram. When Vashishta returned and found Nandini missing, he through his divine vision saw all that had happened and cursed the 8 Vasus to be born as mortal men in this world. For a Deva who enjoys all pleasures and immortal life in the heavens, to be born in this world and live the life of a man with the pain and sufferings we go through in a lifetime is a horrible experience. So, when the 8 Vasus came to know of this curse, they ran to Vashishta and fell at his feet asking for his forgiveness. Vashishta said that the curse cannot be lifted and has to follow its course. But the effect of the curse can be reduced. He said, Go request Goddess Ganga to be your mother on earth and ask her to relieve you of your birth as soon as you are born so that you may return to the heavens without long years of sufferings. This reduction in effect I grant to 7 of you who supported Prabhasa in his act of stealing. Since Prabhasa was the one who actually stole the cow, the curse will remain in full effect for him and he will have to live his full lifetime on earth like a man. But he will live a great life and be regarded as one of the best souls to have ever walked the earth. Saying this, Vashishta went back into meditation. Ganga continued, Upon the request from the Vasus, I assume the human form and marry you. My job is now over and I must now go back to my heavenly abode. I am taking your 8th son with me and I will bring him back to you after he is amply grown up. After saying this, Ganga flew away into the sky along with the newborn. King Shantanu felt very disappointed and returned to his palace with a broken heart. Shantanu, filled with grief from the loss of his wife and son, began to practice brahmacharya and ruled his kingdom extremely well. By merely adopting virtuous behavior, Shantanu was easily able to conquer the entire world without lifting weapons. All the kings declared Shantanu as emperor and his reign was a peaceful one. Shantanu gave up hunting and gained popularity from his subjects. Many years after, one day when Shantanu was taking a stroll on the bank of the river Ganges, that is Ganga, Shantanu saw that the river had become shallow. While searching for the cause of this phenomenon, he came across a handsome young boy who had checked the river's flow with his celestial weapon. The young boy was his son. However, he didn't recognize him because he could see him only for a few moments after he was born. The boy recognized that he was his father. However, he did not reveal it to him. Instead, he disappeared from his sight using his power of illusion. Shantanu, upon seeing this, wondered whether the boy was actually his son and called up Ganga to show the boy to him. Goddess Ganga emerged out of the river with a young boy. Ganga spoke, "O king, here is your 8th son Devavrata. I have brought him up in order that he may be able to cope with what is to befall on him in his life on this earth." Ganga revealed to him that the boy was actually his son Devavrata and that he was taught the knowledge of the holy scriptures by the sage Vashishta and the art of warfare by Parshurama. After revealing the truth about Devavrata, she told Shantanu to take him to Hastinapur. Although Shantanu was pained from his separation from Ganga, he was overjoyed upon receiving such an accomplished son. He performed 7 Ashwamedha Yagnas on the banks of Yamuna with the help of Devavrata. The king happily brought the prince to the palace and celebrated his advent by declaring him the crown prince of his kingdom. Devavrata was brave, just, and looked highly promising. King Shantanu was getting old and announced his retirement. He was lonely and always missed Ganga. It was one day while he was taking a stroll on the bank of the river Ganges, he was attracted towards a charming maiden, Satyavati. She was the daughter of the chief of the fishermen tribe. She took the sages across the river on a boat. She had a divine aroma coming out of her body. Shantanu did not know the secret that circled around Satyavati during her maiden days. Satyavati once had a bad fishy smell on her body. Sage Parasha, one of the sages who she took across the river, had a special liking for her. He was pleased and blessed with a sweet aroma, along with the boon of a son whose name was Vyasa. Immediately after the birth, Vyasa grew up through his divine powers and left for the forest. Vyasa, however, promised his mother Satyavati that he will come back whenever he was called for. Vyasa, later on known as Vedavyasa, had mastery of the Vedas but was extremely ugly looking and had a horrible smell. Vedavyasa authored the story of Mahabharata for the sake of posterity. It is said that Vyasa dictated the entire epic at a stretch while Lord Ganesh acted as the scribe. In addition, Vyasa played a central role in his story appearing and disappearing on the scene. Whenever his mother or her family members sought his help, he had rare magical qualities to resolve their problems.